Hello and welcome to another episode. Today we'll be looking at some grammar, the present perfect, and some language functions. Let's get started. We're going to be looking at the present perfect simple and continuous. In order to start, let's look at why and when we use them. Basically, we use the present perfect simple when we're trying to link events or actions that started in the past with the present time. We can also use them to talk about certain periods of time using for and since. Let's look at the following sentence. The criminals have broken the law. They should be punished. What do I mean here? Basically here I'm saying that the criminals broke the law in the past. The law was broken in the past. And now, right now, we're thinking about future punishments. Okay, let's look at some more examples. Here we have Tom. Tom is looking for his keychain. He can't find it. How can I use the present perfect to talk about that? Basically, I can say that Tom has lost his keys. What do you notice here? Look at the yellow words. Has and lost. Tom has lost his keys. If I'm talking about Tom and his friends and they both lost their keys, I'll say they have lost their keys. This is the key of the present perfect. Let's look at it. Now we have these two sentences. Let's break down the rule. If we're talking about the plural form, they or we use have plus the verb in past participle. We also use that to talk about I and you. So if you're using any of the words in front of you, we add have and the verb in past participle. However, if we're talking about the singular form, for example, Tom, Sarah, Noura, anyone you can name, plus he, she, it, we simply add has and the verb in past participle. Just like you saw in the previous sentences, Tom has lost his keys and they have lost their keys. Now we're ready to try some exercises. Let's look at them together. The criminals break the law. What do we do here? We look at the word criminals. It's in the plural form. So what are we going to add? The criminals have, excellent, broken the law, because break, when we turn it into the verb past participle, it will be broken. Now I'll let you pause the video, try to answer the next two questions, and then come back to check. I'm sure you got them right. Let's look at the second sentence. The match. Now the match is singular. Just start. If we use just, we add it right after the modal. So what do? The match is singular. The match has just what? Started. Excellent. And that brings us to the last sentence. Sarah not pass her driving test. What do we do here? It's the same as just. We add not, the negative form, after the modal. So what do we say? Sarah is singular, so I'll say Sarah has not passed her driving test. Excellent, you're getting there. Let's move on. If we talk about durations, we can use for or since. How can we use them? Let's look at this sentence. I have studied English for 10 years. We use for when we're talking about a period of time. For example, 5 years, 4 years, 6 years, 2 hours, a period from to. So we say, I have studied English for 10 years. Now, what do we do if we're talking about a specific date or a specific time expression? We use since. For example, if I'm going to use the same sentence, I'll say, I have studied English since the year 2000. So we can establish that we use since for specific dates or time expressions. Let's see some more examples. We can use it for things like yesterday, last month, this morning, my birthday, 2011, and 8 o'clock. Now you know how to use them. Let's see you apply them to an exercise. Look at this example. We have lived here, what? 1987. Look at the word 1987. Is it a specific time or a time period? What do you think? Are we going to use for or since? Excellent. We're going to be using since because it's a specific time. And look at the sentence. Look, we have lived here since 1987. Because we're using since 1987 and we're referring to a specific time period, we are using of the present perfect simple. So we use we, it's in the plural form. We add have and the verb right after it is in the past participle. Always try to look at these things when you're applying the sentences. It helps you remember. Now let's look at another example. My friend has had his car. What? Years. Years, is it a time period or is it a specific time? What do you think? Years. It's a time period. So we're going to be using for or since. What do you think? Excellent. We'll be using for. My friend has had his car for years. Let's look at Khalid here. Khalid has been waiting 2 hours. Now 2 hours obviously is a duration of time, so we're going to be using what? For. Excellent. Khalid has been waiting for 2 hours. That brings us to the end of the present perfect simple. Let's look at the present perfect continuous. From the name, it means it continues. And here we're focusing on the duration, how long the event took, more than the just what happened. We're focusing on the action and how long it took. Look at this boy, Jasim here. Jasim has been studying the law for 3 years. What do you notice? What's different? Before we said they have broken the law. They have, and the verb in the past participle. However, here we're using something different. We're saying Jasim has been studying. Excellent. For how long? For 3 years. What do I mean here? It means that he started studying 3 years ago and is still studying now at this right moment. Excellent. Let's look at another example. I have been running for 10 minutes. Now that's a long time. What do I mean here? I have been running for 10 minutes. That I started running 10 minutes ago and I'm still running at this moment. Excellent. Let's break down the rule. If we're talking about the plural form, for example, they and we, or we're talking about I and you, we'll use it with have plus been plus the verb in the ing form. Excellent. However, if we're talking about Hassa, Ahmed, Khalid, Muhammad, anyone, or he, she, it, we use it with have plus been plus the verb in the ing form. Let's practice some sentences. Aisha writes her economics essay all morning. Now notice all morning is a period of time. Let's look at Aisha. Aisha is a singular form. So we'll say Aisha has been writing her economics essay all morning. Now what I want you to do, try to pause the video, attempt to answer the next three questions, and then come back to check your answers. Excellent. Let's look at the next question. The student, now notice this in the singular form, study law for 3 years. What do we say? The student, because it's singular, we're going to use has. The student has been studying law for 3 years. Excellent. Look at the next one. The police interview people all week. Now, do we consider police singular or plural? What do you think? Obviously, the police is in the plural form, so we'll use the police have been interviewing people all week. Excellent. And the final question we have here, we played tennis for 2 hours. What do we say? Time period and we in the plural form, so we'll say we have been playing tennis for 2 hours. Excellent. I'm sure you got them all correct. Now, that ends the present perfect simple and continuous, and let's start with the next rule. We're going to be using comparative and contrastive connectors. Basically, let's look at the first thing, which is what do I mean by compare and what do I mean by contrast. When we contrast something, we're showing how different something is. When we're comparing, we're showing how similar they are. So are you trying to show something as similar? You're going to be using some comparing. If you're contrasting, you're showing how different it is. For example, let's look at these contrasting connectors. Focus here, we're looking at how different they are. Just like we said, you are tall, whereas I'm short. The first one is whereas. We also have but. On the other hand, instead of and in comparison with. We're going to be looking at each one individually. Let's look at whereas. When do I use whereas? Again, when I say something and then I want to show that something else is different, because what are we doing here? We're contrasting. For example, we can say life in the village is peaceful. Notice that I said village is peaceful, whereas life in the city is stressful. Peaceful, stressful. These are the differences. I'm focusing on the differences. These are what contrastive connectors do. Let's see you apply it. Whereas some people enjoy the outdoor life, others spend all their time indoors. We can also use whereas in the beginning of the sentence in the way that we have here. So you can either use it in the beginning of a sentence or in the middle of a sentence. Let's look at this sentence here. We've got sugar is sweet, lemon is sour. What do you notice? Obviously, sweet and sour are two different things. We're going to apply using whereas in that sentence to contrast between the two. So we'll say sugar is sweet, whereas lemon is sour. Let's look at the next sentence. I like football. I'm talking about myself. I like football. My friend likes tennis. Now, these are two different sports. So we're going to compare what me and my friend like. So I'll say, I like football, whereas my friend likes tennis. See how easy it is to use them. If you understand that basically we're focusing on the differences, look at the two differences in the sentence and you can connect them. We also have but. When do we use but? Again, in the same way. We're trying to join two different clauses, join them all in one sentence. For example, we can say, Sami prefers living in this country, but I prefer the town. Now, I'm showing that Sami likes something, and I like something completely different, but I prefer the town. We can also say, Noura is very hardworking, but she is not very imaginative. What are we comparing? We're comparing what she does. Hardworking, not imaginative. Two completely different things. It was a long walk, but it was worth it. Again, we're focusing on differences. Let's see you apply that. Connect these two sentences. Look at the first one. I am good at maths, so I'm good at maths. I am better at English. What difference do I have? Good, better. Let's see you apply or connect these two sentences using but. I am good at maths, but I'm better at English. Excellent. We can also have here, on the other hand. Look at it. Policemen earn a modest wage. On the other hand, lawyers are often very well paid. So we're comparing two different jobs and how much they're paid. One is a modest wage, one is very well paid. Let's see you apply it here. Traveling by car is very cheap. On the other hand, flying is more expensive. Again, we're comparing prices. We have another example. We have instead of. Basically, when we use instead of, we can add a noun after it, instead of coffee, or instead of helping. I can also add a verb after it. Remember, if I decide to use a verb after it, it has to be in the gerund form, meaning with ing. When we're trying to give you an alternative, we'll use instead of. So look at the first one. Instead of cultivating land, some villagers move to the city. See, they're giving an alternative. And notice, after instead of, we added the verb in the gerund form. I can also add a noun after it by saying, instead of coffee, I prefer tea. Or, instead of becoming a lawyer, like his father, he chose to be a policeman. Very simple. Let's see you apply it here with the sentences in front of you. I want chocolate ice cream, not chocolate. So how can I use instead of? I'll say, I want chocolate ice cream instead of chocolate. Very easy. And if I say instead of, I have to remove the negative, not chocolate. You have to remove it because you're giving the alternative, which is instead of. Next, we have the word in comparison with. We're trying to compare something with something else. In comparison with careers, the legal profession can be quite stressful. So we're comparing here. Excellent. I can also say in comparison with urban areas, rural areas are more peaceful and quieter. Excellent. What I want you to do is to look at the following sentences. I'm going to do the first one with you, and then you can pause the video and try to attempt the rest by yourself. Look at the first one. Choose the correct answers. You have lots of time to do your homework. I have very little time indeed. What am I doing here? You have lots of time. I have very little time. What do I use? Do I use on the other hand? Do I use whereas? Do I use but? Or do I use in comparison with? What do you think? Obviously, I'm showing the differences, so I'll go with whereas. Whereas you have lots of time, I have very little time indeed. Look at the second one. You could always handwrite the note using your phone. Here, you can handwrite, use your phone. What am I giving? On the other hand, whereas, but instead of. What do you think? Excellent. You could always handwrite your note instead of using your phone. Excellent. Look at the next one. On the one hand, Hassa says she's lonely and bored. She never goes out. What am I going with? On the other hand, whereas, but instead of. What do you think? On the other hand, yes, excellent. On the one hand, Hassa says she's lonely. On the other hand, she never goes out. Excellent, you're getting there. And that brings us to the next question. The tallest buildings in London are small. New York skyscrapers. What am I doing here? Comparing, contrasting, what do you think? I'm comparing, so I'll say the tallest buildings in London are small in comparison with New York's skyscrapers. Excellent. And this brings us to the functions section. When it comes to functions, basically focus on a number of things. Focus on what you would say in that situation. Put yourself in the situation. Think about things you would say. And go ahead and write a full, clear, accurate sentence. The first example we have here is, your friend says that liberty is a more complex idea than it may appear. So someone is saying, liberty is a more complex idea than it may appear. What could you offer? What would you say? You'd give reasons why her answer is true. You'd agree with her. I agree with you. You'd compare and contrast. Liberty is more complex in comparison with other ideas. Or you can use any of the comparative and contrastive connectors you've seen. It's all up to you what you would say in that situation. We have another example here. Your brother has accessed confidential private sites on the internet. What do you think? Is he doing a good job? Is he not doing a good job? What would you do? You're going to put yourself in that situation, express your opinion on what he did, maybe give him some advice, disagree, and it's all up to you. We have an example here. Some motorists exceeded the speed limits in residential areas. Put yourself in that situation. You found this out. What would you say? Would you express your opinion? I think this is very bad. Would you give them advice? You should not speed. You should follow the rules. Or would you disagree? I think this is a completely negative idea. What do you think? It's all up to you. That brings us to the end of our episode. In this episode, we looked at present perfect simple and continuous. We looked at comparative and contrastive connectors and some language functions. Thank you for watching.